Hello, 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 and welcome to the Alt Work Podcast, where we explore the new frontiers of work and challenge everything you thought you knew about career, business, and the world of work. I'm Victoria Reles, and with me is my co-host, Sakib Rasul. Hi, Sakib.
Hello, Victoria.
Today, we're talking about coaching and asking the question, do I really need a coach? Demystifying coaching and its value. Is a coach truly worth the investment, and how can you find the right one for you? Are just some of the questions we'll be asking to help you decide for yourself. So let's dive in. Sakib, why don't you start us off by sharing with us how you got into coaching? What inspired you to become a coach, and what has led you to where you are now?
Well, Victoria, how far back in the rabbit hole you want me to go? That's a great question right off the bat. I think I can begin from many places, as throughout my life, I have been fortunate to have had great mentors. And I have mentored so many people throughout my career. But what really provoked me to, I think, consider taking on coaching as my career is when I was working for Microsoft. I left to do my own startups. I had some success, but when I hit major roadblocks and made mistakes that cost me heavily, I think at that time I inspired myself to, and I couldn't really find a mentor that can show me where I was stuck, where I was blocked, what mistakes I was making. I had a lot of advisors that would, give advice like sprinkle salt over salad, but to have a coach that show you week by week, day by day, where are you stuck? I didn't have anyone like that, and I looked around and I couldn't find. And I think it was at that time it inspired me to prepare myself to be a coach. I ran a startup incubator where I would help people design the product market fit and the whole product design and develop the product and take it to market. And many times during that time, I found that all these activities, something, people that struggled with going to market and making a difference or raising funds, there was something missing from their way of being. And I didn't have the skills to call them to attention. So I think it's during that time, it inspired me to prepare myself to be a coach, and grew the ambition in me that I want to learn how to mentor and coach others. And actually, come to think of it, many years ago, when I met Fernando Flores for the first time in San Francisco at an event, after a short conversation, he said to me, "So looks like you want to do what I do." Even at that time, I did not know this would be my career path, but I think he was right on.
Yeah. Actually, now that I'm thinking about it, you started off as an engineer. You went to college, and you studied engineering, and at Microsoft you worked as an engineer, and then you transitioned into coaching. Well, first startups, and then coaching. It's an interesting process. So, we talked a little bit about this, I think, in the previous episode, but I just want to say, at the core, what would you say coaching is? To demystify coaching, right? At the core, what would you say coaching is? What happens in a coaching session?
Coaching is a process of unfolding. And what do I mean by that? You see, we human beings are very special kind of animals. We live in a reality that we have made it up in conversations and stories. And it's very real. It's very somatic. Our biology collaborates with this reality. Maturana called it structural coupling. We cope with what's going on out there and what's going on out there. It provokes some kind of emergence, some kind of an evolution in our body, and we end up coping with our environment with good intention, with good reason, with positive mindset, sometimes in this business of living life, we get very stuck. Where do we get stuck? Something happens, we consider something that worked or didn't work, or we get hurt, or we get some benefit, and we make up a truth. And that truth becomes kind of like an invisible bias, except it wasn't necessarily the ultimate truth. It might have been right in the moment, something made sense. So this sense-making business that we engage in, sometimes what makes sense traps us, and it traps us into conversations and ideas and blind spots and beliefs that we even forget that it's trapping us. So coaching is a process through which these blind spots, these traps that are keeping us in place, that are blocking our potential to really express itself, which is the deepest desire of any entrepreneur, is to express themselves into the world. That expression gets...
Or any human being, really, to really fully be able to express themselves.
You're right on. Thank you. I'm thinking all the time about entrepreneurs or any human being that want to express themselves. This expression gets blocked. So coaching is a process through which some of these blind spots could be removed. And when these blind spots are removed, there is a potentiality, an unbelievable depth, energy, and potentiality that's in every human being. It can just sort of like unleash evolution, conscious evolution, mental evolution, evolution about what you see, what you don't see, where you're stuck, where you're not stuck. What do you think your purpose of life is? The whole game can change. That can give you unbelievable amount of energy. So coaching is a process, one we could say, is a process of opening new possibilities. It's when done right, it's a process of creating almost like, if you think about coach in, say, baseball game or basketball game or football. It's more like intense, short time. So the coach every now and then provides an alert from the sideline. Coach says, hey, time out, come here. You, and don't do that and do this and go back out there. Why'd you miss the blah, 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 right? So it's little perturbed. So coach, when coaching is done right, coaching is not like an information giving. It is not, and we can talk a little bit more about that. What do we mean by that? But coaching is about creating an alert, a perturb that provides the organism, the body level. It's through a conversation. It creates a process of transcending beyond where you might be stuck. The evolution comes from within. The intelligence, the evolution, all of that happens inside. But coaching, when done right, can create that perturb. And by creating that perturb, can alter your perception of reality. So in that way, show you a new possibility that you didn't think was possible before. Most of the time, what we do, how do we make decisions? We look at options in front of us and we calculate the pros and cons of every option, and we choose. You're smiling as you remember a little bit of that, maybe in choosing a college or choosing a job or what to do.
Almost anything.
Almost anything that we just end up getting from the best of all the worst options. And we call that decision making. We call that moving forward in life. But what it really is, when we make a decision like that, when we choose from all the obvious options, we are not really living a new future. Rather, we are repeating our past. So a good coach can help you to escape this game of keep choosing from the obvious options and show you something that you don't think is possible. We're blind to the possibility. Our ears, eyes, we're just blind, and we close our ears, close our eyes and say, this is not possible.
Yeah.
Coach, by providing the alert, by providing the perturbance when done right, can show you a new possibility.
Yeah.
And in that way, give you a new interpretation of your existence, of your reality, that you can then commit to fulfilling. Coach then helps you make that commitment against your common sense. Even sometimes the common sense is, hey, I have these options. I should do this or do this. And there are pros and cons. Coach can maybe show you a new way that you didn't see possible. And once you see it, coach can help you make that commitment and stay committed on it, so you can imagine an alternative future.
Yeah.
And make this alternative future happen in your life. So in a nutshell, there's a lot more to be said, but in a nutshell, that's what coaching process is.
That was very good. We talk about this 24/7, right? That's our work. But in this conversation, even I saw something new. So
what did you see?
Mainly that it's about, like, if you keep making decisions how you have always made it, then you will kind of keep repeating your past. Coaching is about like showing that person a new possibility that they couldn't see before, right? Yeah, because sometimes we get so stuck with our stories and our past and how things have always been, that just it's not possible. Like, we don't see it as a possibility, so it never, like, that possibility never shows up, right? So it takes someone else to like kind of shake you and say, no, why and ask you difficult questions and perturb you, so that you can see, like, okay, yeah, that's a good point, so
something. Now, how we do it, that's a whole another conversation that I suggest we don't take on today. That how we do it, we're gonna limit ourselves from diving into that. But another day we can do a conversation of how exactly coach does it. It is not just keep asking questions, because this is super important, Victoria. A lot of people these days are beginning to believe that coach's job is to keep asking questions. That's not exactly what coach's job is. Coach can make assessments. Coach can make declarations. If a coach says, if you don't own your word, if you don't fulfill your commitment, I will not coach you. By doing that, a coach creates a new kind of a perturb, new kind of an alert, a trigger. So how we do it, we'll talk about it another day.
Yeah. Okay. Fair. While you were talking, something came up to me. An idea came up to me that, like, demystifying coaching. I think coaching is becoming a lot more popular than it was before. So I'm kind of thinking, like, what is this emergence of coaching, of people interested in coaching and open to the idea of taking up a coach? Like, why would you say this, like, new wave or emergence is showing up?
I think that's an interesting question. We have to see that what's happening in the society, in our work environments, in people's careers, whether you are working at a corporate or you have your own business, small or large, across the board, there is kind of a dissatisfaction, like a lack of joy, or lot of concern and not knowing how to move, because a lot of the old formulas, they are not working. Now, we say that, and we these days it's gonna become like a normal thing to say that, hey, a lot of the old formulas are not working. But what does it mean? What are those formulas that are not working? The last 200 years, we have promoted a certain ideology that every human being has a natural passion that human beings should discover at an early age. Then that human being should commit to cultivating that particular skill by going to college and spending 4 years doing something. In an ideal situation, you would know everything about that. But we see graduates coming out and they can't really do much. Because the old formulas, the memory retention game, the knowledge game, to go and learn the knowledge, and then in the job, your activity was till the age of, like, mid-20s, you're acquiring knowledge, and then for rest of your life, you're dispensing knowledge. That game is gone. All knowledge is like right here.
Yeah.
Just Google or ChatGPT, it has all the knowledge. The knowledge game is gone. So that game is not working. And a lot of people don't know how to move powerfully in their careers, in their jobs, in the middle of messes. People, we have been working with machineries for so long, we have forgotten how to work with each other. So people don't know how to resolve conflict with each other, how to deal with breakdowns. So the messes are becoming larger and larger. A lot of people end up suffering psychologically or even physically at the hands of their work, at the hands of their colleagues. So, and on top of that, the psychological approach has been not as successful as we imagined it would be when we began to promote it like 100 years ago, the last century or so. It's not been as successful. And I think that this breakdown that has gone unaddressed, unresolved, I believe that's one of the factors that's contributing to the rise of coaching. Another aspect, maybe, so I'm thinking out loud together with you. I don't have that as a clear answer, so you're welcome to agree or disagree or say something that's in your own awareness. But another thing I think that's going on, that we have entered an era of extreme personalization. Everybody wants things the way that they want it. You can almost imagine your 2 generations ago, your grandma, those were different kind of human beings, really. They didn't wanted everything so specially and so specifically. Maybe that's neither like a good thing or a bad thing. The 2 generations ago, 1 generation ago, people lived in the idea that their satisfaction that they're going to get from their career has been predetermined. All they have to do is to walk this path and they will receive that satisfaction, whether that's in the form of retirement or a particular kind of lifestyle or whatever. Now what's going on, first of all, walking that clear path is not leading people to the satisfaction they anticipated, number one. Number two, that we want more. We want to be more, have more, experience it differently, go beyond where your parents might have gone, go beyond where we are trying to go to Mars. I would say that's going beyond. Our previous generation went to moon. This generation says
wants to go further.
Wants to go further. So I think a combination maybe of these two things, and maybe there are some other factors. I'd like to hear, what do you see? But I think that this is kind of a perfect storm, that there is so much chaos, number one. Number two, there is no clear way, at least from the recent history, to resolve this chaos. And number three, everyone wants, not everyone, we're saying everyone, but many people, more and more people, they want to go beyond. They are not satisfied with how things have been. They are not satisfied being told that you need to stand in line and wait for your turn. People are not willing to stand in line and wait for their turn because they are watching that many people that have been standing in line for 30, 40, 50 years are not getting the candy that they were promised at the end of the line.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think all of this chaos and opportunity, both that are showing up. Another aspect which is connected to this extreme personalization, that a lot of old opportunity is disappearing and a lot of new opportunities opening up. And our schools and colleges, they didn't prepare us to deal with this new opportunity. So what do you think? What do you see in there, and what insights you might have about the same?
I agree with you, and I think you said all of it very well. But yeah, this world is changing so much. We are changing so much as a generation. And so many new breakdowns that we are not, like, our systems have not prepared us to deal with. And so I think coaching is showing up as like a new, like a, well, like to be a coach, like as a new skill in a, like a new relationship kind of, that is very helpful to deal with these breakdowns that are going on personally in our like career, right? So yeah.
New skill. That's interesting. Right on.
Yeah, and you mentioned some of like the old ways that aren't really working anymore, and you mentioned the psychological approach. So there's psychological coaching, and then there's also ontological coaching. Should we talk about that a little bit?
Sure. What's just
like
take us through whatever's on your
what is the psychological approach or the view, and what's the ontological view or approach in coaching?
That's a
Maybe
big
let's just
question.
like maybe let's just like define it a little bit, and then we can ask more detailed questions about it.
Okay. All right. So let's take a look. I think that the psychological approach, we have to go back and take a look and see when it was born and what is the history of psychological approach. Psychological approach was born hand in hand with the modern era, with the industrialized era, when human beings began to look at our life, our environment, everything as a resource, as an automatic machine that's working. So we looked at ourselves as human beings and we said, okay, we are also a machine of a kind. So if you're not behaving very well, if the machine, suppose you have a factory and the machine is making this weird noise like, what would you do? You take your screwdriver and you go fix the machine. Yeah. So we said, okay, the same approach for human beings. If the human being is going like you send it to the psychologist's office and it fix your brain, fix your head, because something is wrong with you. There's a standard of conduct, and this standard of conduct, it leads to either my automatic thing, it raised my hand. This standard of conduct, I'm going to turn this thing off here. Okay. This standard of conduct we measure against, and if something is wrong with you, you're not behaving in a standard way, like every machine should, then we need to fix you. So psychology, behavioral psychology, or many of the psychology, it seeks to produce a behavior shift in a human being by fixing a single human being's head. And for certain things, it could be quite effective. If you are dealing with something that is now a very well diagnosed mental illness, or psychologists have been performing a lot of experiments. The psychology is about the control of psyche, the control of emotion, and the control-oriented approach, it works. Notice that the same control approach also worked for running factories, for managing businesses the last 100+ years, even longer than 100 years, maybe 200 years. The same approach of command control worked. But we're entering into an era where, first of all, we're realizing that human being is not like a solitary phenomena. We're not our own phenomena. We are our background. We are our context. And so the ontological approach looks at human being, not so much that what is wrong in your head that has to be fixed with a screwdriver, but rather, how are you existing within your environment? It looks at human being as a, number one, biological phenomena. First, we are bodies, and body has habits, and these habits are part of our nervous system. It copes. If there is a certain behavior that we are doing, most likely the body has learned to cope with its background environment. So without some consideration of the context of the background, that Flores called it human beings historicity, that we have this quality, this dimension to ourselves, that we are the kind of beings that live in history. We don't just live right in this moment. We are designed historically in narratives. So ontological coaching focuses a lot on the narratives, on the language, and also on the moods that are more in the background, that are more hidden, that are also not our own, but have come to us from our backgrounds, from our environments. Ontological coaching aims to create behavior change, not by focusing on the behavior itself, but by producing a perturbance in the body, like we said earlier. So there is an evolution happening on its own in the body. And ontological coaching, I would say, maybe three dimensions to it. Maybe that's enough for now. Let me see what's on your mind, and before we go any further, is that good opening, or should we say
I think it is, and I think it is also worth it to say that, because I've heard this so many times before, that from Fernando or Chauncey, I forget which one, but the same, that we are three things: historical, linguistic, and biological beings. And biology you already talked about a little bit, and history as well, but language is also a very important part of ontological coaching. Whereas I don't really think it shows up in other places. So do you want to say a little bit about that?
Sure. Human being, I think that you're talking about now all continental philosophers, existential philosophers, gave a great deal of importance to language, but in the ontological approach that's becoming, that's emerging right now and becoming popular, at least in some fringe communities, has to do with the work of what is the name of the philosopher of language from Cambridge University?
John L. Austin?
John L. Austin. Thank you, Victoria. John L. Austin was an interesting guy. Before he proposed the theory of speech acts, before he didn't call them speech acts. I think it would be Terry Winograd and Fernando Flores that would call these things speech acts. I believe that he called them generative verbs. John L. Austin was the first one in the modern era, to notice that language is not descriptive. We're not using the language to describe how reality is existing, but rather he noticed that certain kind of language creates reality. Like you and I promised each other that we will do a podcast. We promised each other 2 days ago, and we put it on the calendar. And by doing that, from Austin's perspective, that we created a new reality, and now we are generating new reality with our language. So ontological coaching focuses a lot on that. And if you talk to someone who's having some struggle in their career, in their business, in their job, in their work, or in their personal life for that matter, in their health for that matter, if you listen carefully, you will begin to see that people are living in a certain kind of language with which they are characterizing, explaining how their life is. So notice that the language we believe, and I'm saying we all fall to this kind of orientation. We believe that we are using the language to describe how reality is. But if you listen very carefully, you will notice that entire description is like a jail cell. That we punish ourselves in the mood of like, this has happened to me, therefore I did this. We explain like a cause and effect. This happened in my life, therefore I did this. My boss doesn't treat me nice, therefore I will not pay attention to work. And so the language goes to then trap. The language goes to create like this shroud around you that we talk in our work, that then traps you in that shroud. And you think you rely on your intelligence, and you try to explain that language more intelligently. And the more language that you use to explain your view, that you think of it as reality, the more stuck you get in that reality. So ontological coaching focuses on helping you pay attention to what language you use and how do you use the language. Like, it's not new. Ontological coaching is not the first one to do this. Human beings from the beginning of time have known the power of word. I gave you promise, and therefore I'll fulfill it. It used to be a big deal before we got all into these computers and rescheduling meetings so easily, and making a whole bunch of promises and not worrying about and doing whatever feels right and comfortable. I don't think human beings were always like that. I think this has been the gift, the bad gift of the modern era, that we have forgotten how to honor our word. Actually, you reminded me of a beautiful quote. I believe it is by, I want to say either it's by Mark Twain or it's by one of the contemporary philosophers who wrote that book with Flores. Spinoza, Charles Spinoza, I believe. I don't recall exactly where this quote came from, but it goes something like, it's interesting that we have become the kind of people who are not willing to die for our beliefs and promises. We're no longer willing to die for what we say. And maybe that is so. Maybe that is so. And by doing that, we forgo a certain kind of a power that we could have with each other. So ontological coaching focuses on this aspect of it, focuses on the aspect of embodied dancing. Embodied dancing, meaning that human being, our primary role isn't to become some standard version, like a psychological coaching would want us to. Do you know this? This might surprise you. This might shock the hell out of you. But in psychology, there is a book that all the psychologists refer to. It's called DSM. And currently we are on DSM version 5. DSM stands for, I think, Diagnostics and Statistical Manual of Psychological Treatments or something like this. And in number 4 version, DSM-4, homosexuality was listed as a mental illness, as a disease, because at that time, it was clear to all the psychologists that there is a standard behavior of human being, and that right there is a deviant behavior. So therefore, now in DSM-5, the gay community, and there's a strong some protest and maybe some power that this community has been gaining from DSM-5, they took it out. It's no longer a problem. It's okay now. So I wonder what else is in there that is a big problem today.
True. Yeah, you're right. That's a bit perturbing, actually, to think about. Okay. Now I want to kind of bring it back to, if someone is thinking about maybe taking on a coach, and they're going through something, when does someone know if they need a therapist or they need a coach? You know what I mean?
It's a very good question. And there's the standard answer that's provided by a lot of coaches is that, hey, if you want to work on your past, go get therapy, and if you want to work on the future, come get coaching. And this smart little logical answer, it stops people, but the matter isn't so straightforward. Human being is an animal that is always dealing with the past and is always dealing with the future. We are standing in the present, being our past, and we're standing in our present, inventing the future. So I think your question has to be assessed at a practical level, not so much at a theoretical level.
Probably,
I think, first of all, find someone who actually gives a shit about you. I apologize for my colorful language here. Find someone who actually cares about you and get interested in really helping you. That is not just being a professional that is doing your hour thing and it's gone and whatever, right? You want to find someone who is available and accessible and has care, and that you have good chemistry with if you're dealing with serious challenge. Now, if you're dealing with challenge where you cannot sit in a conversation. If you're listening to this conversation and nothing has made sense, and there's so much anxiety, there is so much turbulence that you cannot hear a word of a conversation. You cannot be in a conversation on being together, like a contigo, con nosotros, the Latin word, con together. Verse means change, being a process. So the process of changing together, conversation, if you cannot engage in it, then probably you need a psychiatrist or psychologist or someone who can help you, as they have done so much work, so many experiments, and there is so much value in some of the methods. And it can produce some stability. If you're extreme unstable, I would either go do 10-day retreat. That can also work very effectively, or I would go seek a therapist or a psychiatrist or something like this.
Yeah.
But if you are in this position where you can have a conversation, where you can ponder, you can think, you can make commitments, maybe you break your commitment, but you can be responsible for breaking your commitment and recommit. And if you're engaged, if you're willing to engage in a process like this, and producing stability is not your only goal, but you want to go beyond where you are career-wise, work-wise, business-wise, just joy-wise, that the joy that you're getting from life, the experience of fecundity that you are having in life, if you want to expand that experience of abundance and fecundity, then I think coaching, you might consider coaching as an option.
Yeah. And I might be wrong, so like feel free to like disagree with me.
You're
but
wrong.
Okay, thanks.
Oh, sorry. Don't make yourself wrong before you say something. So say what you're gonna say.
I was gonna say that coaching, I think it requires, for someone to like look for a coach, does it require them to like acknowledge that, yeah, I want more than what I currently have in the moment. Like what I have right now, I have, but I'm not satisfied with it. Like, does it require someone to be able to acknowledge that, yeah, I'm not satisfied with what I have right now and I want more? And so that's a good place to be in. So you can say, okay, I can take on a coach now. Or do they not have to be able to acknowledge it? Or they just, I don't know.
Right. Right. I think you reminded me of a joke I heard in my, I think, 3rd or 4th grade, and it's stuck in my mind as a lifelong lesson. The joke goes something like this. What is that joke? The little Joey or little Timmy? There's a famous character that we always tell the joke in the American culture.
I don't know.
Okay, I forgot the name, but let's just make up something called Little Timmy. Little Timmy is late to the class by 2 hours.
Yeah.
The teacher looks at little Timmy and said, "Timmy, what's going on? Why are you so late to the class?" The Timmy says, "Well, I was helping an old lady cross the road." The teacher says, "Okay, that's very good, but why 2 hours late?"
Yeah.
Little Timmy says, "Well, the thing is that the old lady did not want to cross the road."
Oh.
So, I mean, you cannot shove help onto someone who does not want to be helped.
Of course.
For those that are comfortable where they are, and actually they may not be comfortable, but maybe it is a fear that if I say, "Hey, I need a coach," or "I need a therapist," in certain case, if you're extremely unstable, by all means, please go get therapist. Or if you're stuck in your career and you're trying things and you got your MBA and you got your project management certification and you learned the next programming language, but none of that is making a difference in your career, or you're an entrepreneur, you're trying to raise money and validate your business, or you're trying to raise the next round, and you're constantly bumping up against something that feels like an invisible ceiling, then some initial humility is required to say, I think I need help. And I think that what stops a lot of people is the fear of looking back.
Yeah, I was going to ask you that, why some people are so like against coaching, or like are so hesitant to even consider taking on a coach and talking to a coach.
Right, right. And I think it's exactly this, that, we don't want to look bad. Like what kind of an idiot I would be talking to a coach or talking to a therapist. I'm not a weak person, because the previous era, it forced a certain design of what it is to be a powerful human being onto us in conversations, in traditions, in education. This has been sort of like this formula has been drilled into our heads, that a real man or a real woman is someone who takes it, who toughs it up, and who takes it. And I think that ideology stops you from seeking assistance when you need it.
Yeah.
Even the word help gets to be like, well, I'm not the kind of person who takes help. So I invite you to think of more like an assistance, that let somebody assist you who can see where you might be stuck and where you might go. But if someone is unwilling to acknowledge their pain, unwilling to see that they can have a new kind of a life, you can make the invitation. You can say, hey, I invite you to consider, but I think it is a precondition. At least, you don't have to totally be transformed, but at least be willing to put your beliefs on shelf for an hour,
temporarily,
just 1 hour. Put your beliefs for 1 hour. Come try this thing and see what happens. So my recommendation would be is to try it. But if you know someone who is suffering and stuck, try it. Try to offer them coaching. Stand for them. You may not know how to coach or what to do, but just standing for someone's care, standing for someone's future, and listening, and be willing to call out what might be the most uncomfortable thing to be called out. That is the heart of coaching. Now, I'm not going to go any further, and I promise you we'll do another episode about how to do coaching. But maybe that is good for today.
But I have a couple more questions of I think lots of people get coaching and consulting and advising confused. They just assume it to be all the same thing. And in the beginning, you talked about how you had advisors, but you didn't have a coach to really help you. So what would you say is the difference between these three things?
Which three?
Consulting, advising, and coaching.
Consulting, advising, and coaching. Victoria, that sounds like beginning of a joke or something. A consultant and an advisor and a coach walk into a bar. I mean, but I haven't figured out the rest of the joke. Maybe the advisor starts to go to the bartender and start advising, hey, that light is in the wrong place. Hey, move that chair over there. Hey, your lighting is not good. And says, well, you need my advice about anything else? Advisor is more like a salt sprinkler. I'm going to sprinkle my salt on salad and take it or leave it. It's up to you. So advisor could be a very important role, but advisor is somewhat detached from what happens. Advisor is a style that worked in the old era. Today, ChatGPT might be the best advisor.
True.
It knows, it has all the knowledge. It can really figure out what you need to do. And the consultant might say to the bartender, hey, listen, I hire me, and then you tell me what do you need done, and I will tell you what you need to do, and I can make you a recipe, and you can follow my steps and follow my recipe and get it done, or something like this. A coach might go to the bartender and say, so where you might be stuck and how are you being? Let's work on your way of being that allowed this consultant and advisor to walk through the front door or something like this. So I think, consultant and advisor is someone who is, now these terms they don't have standard definitions. Some people listening to this might start to fight with us. It's like, no, I'm not this kind of a consultant. And to be honest with you, sometimes I refer to myself as a consultant sometime an advisor. But what you need is someone who is willing to look beyond what you're asking them to do. To a consultant and an advisor, you go and ask a clear question and you get a clear answer. Coach is someone who sees beyond what you're asking and where you might be stuck and what you might be hiding, and helps you identify that and overcome it.
Got it. So they see what you're saying, but also what you're not saying.
That's what a coach, when a coach is well trained and coach does their job well, that's what should happen.
Got it. Okay, that's helpful. Thank you. And now, kind of last questions. Sagiv, do you have a coach? And and if so, what, like, how has having a coach helped you?
I have had many coaches throughout the years. Anytime I need to learn something new, I take a coach. Any new domain, I take a coach. I also, I work in this tradition of this group of people that have been around Stanford and Berkeley and other people in this group, renowned philosophers. I have been extremely lucky to meet Fernando Flores and Chauncey Bell and many other people. So I would say that, yes, if I were to say, I don't have a formal coach right at this moment, and I am thinking about taking one, but many times Chauncey has worked with me for many years. Before Chauncey, Dr. James McManus worked with me for many years. Before Dr. James McManus, maybe other people at Microsoft, Garrett Jacobs and Steve Pepitone have been important mentors and coaches of mine. Then in Pakistan, Rana Zahid is the name that comes to mind as my earliest mentors, and so many others. Right at this moment, actually, I do have a coach. I have a marketing coach. I took Sam Owens as a marketing coach because honestly, I don't know how to really build funnels, or now I have learned a little bit, but before I didn't. So I took a coach this last December and took a course and have learned a lot, and I'm still learning in that domain.
Okay, got it. So in a way, I'm kind of also asking, like, do people really need a coach? I know you said that it's definitely more of like a practical question than it is a theoretical one. But like, I think lots of people see coaching as like a side, like a very expensive, luxurious thing that they could get eventually. But is it that? Do people really need a coach?
I don't know if people really need a coach. Need is a strange word. I mean, but if someone has an interest in producing more satisfaction in their career, in their work, in their business, then I think that you owe it to yourself to give it a test. Try coaching. Come to me, come to us. We offer the first hour at no cost, our treat. Amazing things could happen. And maybe where you're stuck, all you need is a one coaching session. Sometimes single coaching session done right can totally change the game. So come do like a free hour of coaching with me, and maybe that's all that you need. And if something important and remarkable happen in that hour, then of course, go for it. Why shouldn't you? If the investment you put into coaching, if it's done right with the right person, it can return tenfold, 100-fold. So you don't really need it like you really need to eat or take a shower or,
I was also going to say that, and I'll share my experience as well, because
please
I've done both. I've had both therapy when I was younger and coaching. And my first response to this question was, we don't really need anything. Like, you don't really need not much to survive, really, right? But the question is more of, if you, I tried therapy when I was younger for certain things I was dealing with at the time. And it helped in certain ways, but in other ways, it left a lot of things open. It didn't really complete in the way that I wanted it to. And I've done coaching with you and also with Chauncey, and we've been working together for a long time. And I would say the main thing for me is that in coaching, I have learned skills and sensibilities that I can help myself now, whereas with the therapy sessions in the beginning, it felt nice. It felt good to be able to talk to someone privately about certain issues that, I didn't feel comfortable talking to other people about. And in the moment, the therapy sessions were nice, but after a while, like, they just ended, and I didn't feel like I had the toolbox to kind of help myself when stuff starts to come up again. And with coaching, I feel like I have learned. I feel like now if I fall a little bit, I can pick myself up. Like, I know, even though sometimes I get stuck in certain moods, I can I have skills now where I can ask myself, like, okay, for example, if I'm in a bad mood, what assessment am I making about the future that's putting me in this bad mood right now? I can ask myself such questions and I can help myself. And that is a very, I think, powerful, like a superpower kind of to have. And sometimes when we have clients, it helps them so much, because some people really don't have anywhere else to go and talk about their career and their work problems, and negotiating with their boss and dealing with all this stuff, because a therapist is not really for that. So yeah, it's many
It's
of our
helped you.
yeah, it
What
has
would you
helped me
say?
and many of our clients as well. So
And what would you say, Victoria? Thank you for sharing, by the way.
yeah.
What would you say is the top skill or sensibility? You mentioned that you've learned skills and sensibilities. What is the top skill or a sensibility that you've learned during coaching with me or with others?
It's a good question. I think I've learned so much about navigating my own moods and other people's moods. But I think the main thing, there's really a lot actually, but I think the main thing is the skill of having emotional fortitude, which I guess you could call like a specific mood. But like the skill of having like a certain sense of confidence and faith in yourself and in the world, which growing up I never had. Like seriously, growing up I always thought like, I always thought bad, like everything was against me, no one is helping me at all, I'm all alone in this, really bad, just bad ways of thinking that just that always make you the victim, and you have like nowhere to go from there. So kind of learning about and developing this mood of emotional fortitude is just, I feel like I can take anything on because I have a certain confidence in myself, in my community. I know that I'm not alone. And I have certain faith that, whatever comes up, I will be able to deal with. It's okay. It will work out eventually. So this certain skill has been super helpful, and there's so many more though.
And this emotional fortitude, I think it's a very important skill. It's more than a skill. It's like a virtue.
For this era,
For the
absolutely.
time that's coming, things are changing. You may lose your job. You may, the climate change is the migrate. It's just so much. We're not going to get into that right now. But a very dynamic and perturbing time. And at the same time, where a lot of the opportunity seems lost, new opportunity is right there. But if you don't have this emotional fortitude and you start to freak out every time something goes wrong. So congratulations to you for having cultivated or in the beginning to cultivate this virtue. I'm delighted to hear that.
In many ways, my life has not gone at all what a normal teenager or 23-year-old's life should be going like. So there were many moments in which I could have definitely freaked out. But yeah, I've been able to see the possibility in the breakdown and take it on, and I'm very happy with where I am right now.
Wow, that's a great testimonial for
Great
the coaching
testimonial.
profession, huh? For the coaching
Yeah.
profession, what a great testimonial, Victoria. Okay.
Okay, but I think that's it. Or do you have anything else you'd like to say? Or
No, I think this is good. I think that we've been at it for almost an hour now. So let's
So
begin to close.
let's complete. So
Mhm.
with this, we conclude episode 4 of the Our Podcast. Do I really need a coach? Demystifying coaching and its value. Thank you, Sakit, for sharing your expertise and your insights. And if you enjoyed this episode, be sure to join our community and our upcoming private live event next Friday on April 21st. We'll put the link in the comment section. And don't forget to tune in next time in the same place as we explore further more interesting questions. I am Victoria Velez, and this has been the All Work Podcast. Thank you.
Thank you, Victoria.